And as a reminder to those of you that are out there, welcome. We are recording this session as we do every month when we gather other providers together. The recording and a copy of all provider comments and questions will be made available on the OPDS website within 24 hours of the meeting's conclusion. So welcome everyone. I'm Brian DeForest, Deputy Director here at OPDS. Welcome to our monthly call. As always, we'll start off with some opening remarks, some introductions as well. I'll hand it over to Ralph for the monthly update on billings. After that, Ralph will hand it over to Lori to talk about unrepresented individuals plans. And then Lori will hand off to Shannon Flowers for any contract reporting reminders. Following that, Autumn will present legislative update and in particular the 3-branch work group. And then we will also have Q&A at the very end. On October 5th, we welcomed one new employee, that is Maddie Davis, as our research analyst. She's one of our senior research analysts. Welcome aboard, Maddie. Glad to have you here and everything that you bring with you. On November 14th, we will add 2 employees. As mentioned at our last meeting, Jordan Hoopert. And I apologize, Jordan, if I mispronounced your last name. I did see you joining the meeting. If you want to go ahead and turn on your camera so that folks can be able to take or to see you in person. There you are. Hi, Jordan. Did I mispronounce? Is it Hoopert or Huppert?
Hooper, you had it right.
Oh, good. Took a stab in the dark. It's 50-50 chance. So welcome aboard, Jordan, on November 14th. Glad to have you here as Deputy General Counsel over in the Trial Division. And then, of course, as most of you know, on the 14th, we will welcome Jessica Camphy as our new Executive Director. I'm not sure there's anybody more excited than Lori, Shannon, and I that you are coming on board. And we will hand the reins over to you on the 14th, just a little bit more than 2 weeks away. So welcome, Jessica Camphy. We're all excited to have you aboard. And in case you have not already heard, finally, we will bid farewell to Chief Justice Walters as she looks forward to retiring at the end of the year. Chief Justice, we're very glad that you've been here for all this time, and we will welcome a new Chief Justice at the beginning of the next year. That's all I have as far as opening remarks and welcomes. Here for you now is Ralph, who will give an update on the billing timelines.
Good afternoon. This is Ralph Amador again, Western Finance. Our processing time is currently at 29 days, and we're kind of holding steady at that point. One good thing that we can say is that we are actually at a point where we're beginning to process things as they come in daily, which it hasn't been that way for quite a while. Stuff would come in and would sit for a little bit, but now as things are coming in daily, we're actually processing it. So that's 100% due to the excellent work that's done by that AP staff and the arduous work they're doing. So they're keeping up as it sits, and 29 days is a good marker for us. As always, if you have inquiries on accounts payable, send it to accounts payable, OPDS state.or.us. If on the off chance you get something that falls through the cracks and has been longer than 30 or 45 days, we still maintain our OPDS.ap.invoice issues email that's shown right now. And again, if you have case support service inquiries, send those to css@opds.state.or.us, and they'll be there. And we ask that you use these emails so that it's properly handled and it's taken care of in the right time. And we have an opportunity right now to be right on top of everything, which is just a great thing. So I'm happy to not have anything further to report to you. Thanks for your time. Thanks for coming here. And I'll hand it over to, I believe, Lori, who's going to talk about the unrepresented clients. And that's my 4 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph. Everyone, this is Lori Bender, and I'm the Chief Criminal Trial Counsel at OPDS. And I would like to share with you the Commission's actions on October 20th regarding the unrepresented persons. The Commission took up several proposals or plans or concepts to address the unrepresented persons. And at the end of the meeting or end of the discussion regarding these concepts, the Commission passed 4 different concepts or plans. The first concept, and if I could have Alina share the screen, is called the New Attorney Incentive Payment Plan. And the first slide refers to the New Attorney Incentive Program for the nonprofit PD offices. And so this slide basically describes the parameters of the program. And the parameters of this program are equally applicable to the companion program, which involves the consortia and law firm as far as incentive payment for new attorneys. So the information regarding the nonprofit PD is the same for the consortia and the law firm. The only difference is the jurisdictions which are identified as targeted jurisdictions for each of these groups or types of entities. So for the nonprofit PD offices, the next slide will show essentially the targeted jurisdictions that are eligible for this program. So everything in the dark color are the targeted jurisdictions. Those jurisdictions have the nonprofit PD offices. So the only 2 that you'll see are not noted here are Washington and Multnomah counties. And essentially the program, and we'll go to the next slide, which shows the new attorney incentive program for the consortia and the law firms. Again, the parameters of the program are the same for both, for all entity types. And essentially, the parameters are that if an entity brings on a new attorney before the end of December, the entity will receive a incentive payment of $20,000 for a 1.0 MAC added capacity to that entity. If the individual stays employed with that entity, and by the end of March of next year, March 31st, the entity will receive an additional $20,000 as an incentive payment. The program expires at the end of the biennium. The incentive payment is proportional to the amount of MAC or the maximum attorney caseload of the new attorney that has been hired by that entity. So if a person is hired as a 0.50 MAC, the incentive payment will be 50% of $20,000 or $10,000. The idea is that in the targeted jurisdictions, we are trying to incentivize consortia, law firms, and the PD offices that are identified to add capacity by bringing on new attorneys. So if we'll go to the next map, shows the consortia and law firms that are identified as targeted jurisdictions eligible for this program. If an attorney is added after December 31st, then the attorney would, or the entity would only get one payment, would not qualify for both incentive payments. And the plan is retroactive to October 1st. So any of the entities that brought on new attorneys as of October 1st are eligible for this program if they meet, of course, the other criteria that is set forth in the plan. If you want to look at the plan in more detail, it is included in the agenda items for the October 20th PDSC Commission meeting. Additionally, you can contact the trial division and either speak to, well, you can speak to any of the trial counsel deputies in the trial division about the parameters of the program. There are some limitations in terms of, the non-targeted jurisdictions, and the idea really is to incentivize new attorneys to public defense. So that's the purpose of this program. The second concept and plan passed by the commission was to increase the hourly rate of investigators from $40 an hour to $75 an hour for any case that investigator has been retained on a case that has been assigned as to an attorney off the unrepresented persons in custody list. So any attorney who has taken one of those cases and is being compensated at the rate of $158 an hour, that attorney can retain an investigator and offer them $75 an hour to represent the client. So it's a very limited number of cases that are being assigned off the unrepresented in custody OJD list. The attorneys that have been assigned to those cases are either non-contract hourly attorneys, or they are contract attorneys who have less than 1.0 MAC. The agency maintains a list of all the cases that are assigned to those attorneys who are being compensated at 158. So some of those attorneys who have accepted those cases, because this program started back at the end of July 29th. And so attorneys who have accepted those cases have, retained investigators at the rate of $40 or $45 an hour, depending on the nature of the case. Those authorizations need to be closed before that investigator can then submit a CSS request to get the enhanced rate of $75 an hour. So the agency is recommending that investigators who have been working on cases that were assigned under the 158 an hour program, is kind of informally what we're calling it, wrap up those authorizations, submit them, and have your attorney submit a new CSS request with the enhanced rate. We are not going to do amendments to existing authorizations. We're not going to do retroactive authorizations on those cases. We would like you as an investigator to submit to bill on the older authorization and get your attorney to submit a new CSS request at the enhanced rate of $75 an hour. So, and just for everyone, we are mindful that investigators, mitigators are underpaid, that there's a need to increase the hourly rate for both mitigators and investigators. However, we're contemplating a more robust discussion of the increased rates for, providers and vendors during this upcoming legislative session. So there's not going to be a rate increase at this time for investigators and mitigators, but this is a temporary kind of program. The program is authorized to the end of the year, although the payments for providers will continue the lifetime of the case. But we hope that we will be able to address the unrepresented persons issue by offering this increased investigator rate to the in custody unrepresented persons and further diminishing the number of unrepresented people that we have in custody waiting for attorneys. And so it's a Band-Aid, but we're hoping that it makes a dent in the numbers that we are dealing with on a daily basis. It seems to hover between 35 and 45, 50 cases. And we really would like to get that down to 0. That's our goal.
Lori, sorry,
Yes.
did you want to take questions along the way, or did you just want to take all the questions at the end? Because you do have a hand up.
Oh, whatever your suggestion is.
Dawn's hand went up while you were talking about the investigator stuff, and I think she's an investigator.
Right.
So
Go ahead,
Dawn, did you
Dawn.
want? You're muted still.
Okay, sorry
There you
about that.
No worries.
So you said to close out the CSSs and then be reissued under the temporary 75. So, but the cases are unrepresented. So how do we go from not being represented?
Okay, I lost the last part of that statement.
So if we already have a CSS, we're to close that one out. But if we have a CSS, aren't those defendants represented already?
Yes, so the increased rate is for any new case that comes off the 158. So if your attorney gets assigned to, say, John Smith tomorrow, and he wants to use an investigator for the case, then he would submit a CSS request for Dean Jones as the investigator at $75 a rate an hour. But so that's a new case that just gets assigned off the list. But say back in August, John Smith had another case, and he was using Dean Jones at $40 an hour. Dean Jones would be encouraged to submit his billing on that client's case, and then have John Smith submit another CS request asking for additional funding at the new rate.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. Thank you very much. I appreciate the explanation.
We want to, since the commission authorized the enhanced rate, people should get it while they're managing these cases or working on these cases.
We lost you again.
Didn't hear that, Dawn.
So it would be for a new case, not one that was previously existing?
No, for both. Like say, I have, a Berg 1 case, and I have had an investigator working on that Berg 1 case, which I got an agreement to be paid at 158. I hired an investigator, and he's been working at $40 an hour. He's got maybe 20 hours left on that authorization. I want him to bill right now whether he's completed that authorization or not. And then I want to submit another CSS request for my Berg One client asking for the $75 an hour.
All right,
Okay.
thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions about that? Okay, the other two concepts that the commission passed on October 20th, the third one was a supervising attorney program. This was just a directive from the commission for the agency to put together a plan or program that would involve supervising attorneys that were qualified, major felony qualified, you know, number of years doing major felonies, court-appointed work. We would pay these supervising attorneys to supervise private bar attorneys, new attorneys to public defense, attorneys that are working in civil law firms. We would have a number of supervising attorneys that would supervise these new attorneys and get them qualified to at least initially handle misdemeanor and lesser felony cases. So that's a program idea. We've got there's a commission member that's interested in that program, and there's other attorneys in the civil bar that have been interested in assisting their attorneys get more trial experience or get some trial experience. And so we are going to start to develop that supervising attorney program. Now, the last one will be of significant interest to all the providers, because this is the discretionary approval for provider plan to increase capacity. And this essentially is a request to all providers to, if you have a plan or a proposal that will increase attorney capacity within your entity, then we would like to see it. We would like you to provide as much information about the program or proposal, providing us with how this proposal or plan would increase attorney capacity. Numbers would be great. Details about the proposal or plan would be very much appreciated, but we would like to generate, you know, any creative plan or proposal that would increase capacity and assist with this unrepresented person's issue. We have, you know, like I said, between 35 and 45 individuals that are in custody and unrepresented, but more significant than that, we have over 700 people out of custody, the majority of whom are in Multnomah County, that are without attorneys, and that is historical. So, and, you know, so any plan that addresses in custody, out of custody, the unmet need in jurisdictions, the agency is really welcoming. And if you have any questions at all, anyone at the trial division is willing to sit down or set up a meeting to discuss your proposals. Thank you very much. And I think now Shannon is going to talk to you about reporting.
Hi everyone, Shannon Flowers here, Chief Juvenile Trial Counsel at OPDS. Just a few reminders about contract reporting. I think as everyone knows, July, August, and September open caseload reports are due from all non-PCRP providers by next Monday, October 31st. And one note on those, I think largely people are know this already, but those reports should be submitted by the contract administrator or their designee for all attorneys working under their contract. So if you're not the contract administrator, you just want to make sure you get your reporting information to the administrator so they can do the submission. If we have multiple providers submitting reports for one contract, it overwrites, and so only the last report submitted will actually get to us. So thank you to all of those of you who have already submitted some or all of those reports for July, August, and September. We've been getting those in pretty steadily over the last couple of weeks. If you're unable to meet the reporting deadline, just contact your program analyst and OPDS will work with you regarding an extension of time to submit those reports, because we understand there were lots of delays on our end in getting things out to you all, and we gave you a relatively short window in which to turn things around back to us. So we understand if you can't meet that deadline, and we'll work with you to get those reports when you can get them to us. For PCRP providers, we'll be hosting a virtual reporting demo and Q&A session next Tuesday, November 1st at 12:15. The link to that, if you're a PCRP provider, you should have already gotten the link to that in a message earlier this morning. The link will also be available on our website, and we'll be recording that for anyone who is unable to join us for the live demo next Tuesday, and we'll post the recording on our reporting webpage. If anyone has any questions specifically about reporting, I'm happy to answer those now, or you can reach out to our caseload reporting email addresses for answers too. All right, I don't see anyone raising any hands, so I'm going to hand it off to Autumn now. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us on your lunch hour. And I'm Autumn Shreve, Government Relations Manager for the Office of Public Defense Services. Here to kind of do a generalized update. Just a couple things. The last meeting of the 3-branch work group was in between the last provider call and today. I remember I was running to do this provider call update on the same day that we had that other meeting. So we've had a meeting in between. We had a meeting on the 13th of this month. So I wanted to give an update on sort of where we stand during that meeting. But also I just want a couple other high points, which are the legislative session is going to be starting on January 17th this year. And we also have legislative days, which is also a time where we report to the emergency board coming up at the beginning of December. The 7th through the 9th. So those are a couple other dates to kind of think about out into the future. But sort of backward looking on updates from the 3-branch work group. This last session of the work group meeting, we really broke into groups. And so it actually included more people from the community in the full meeting and then in the subgroups than we'd had before, which I think I was heartened by that we got a little more representation from your community as well. So the 4 groups that are subgroups that exist right now, I think I really briefly went over these during the last provider call, but I'm going to talk about them again. Number 1 is they're just calling the commission, which is really about the PDSC commission, their membership, their duties, their authority, and then also whether a transfer out of the judicial branch to possibly the executive branch is something that is workable. There is 2 legislative concepts that are prepared, meaning potential bills that are sort of already starting to be fleshed out related to that specific sub work group. I will just note that the co-chairs of the full work group, Representative Evans and Senator Przianski, are also the co-chairs of this particular sub work group, which means you can tell that this is the one that most of the focus is going to be on into this next legislative session. One thing that they did say is that some of the language that they're planning to have drafted is related back to what was done related specifically to the commission in House Bill 3145, you may recall, from the 2019 legislative session. So not the whole bill, just the parts that are related to the commission. The second work group is systems efficiencies. Also included in that is a subcategory of means testing. Means testing meaning the means testing of our clients to determine whether or not they qualify for public defense services. OJD is helping to lead that group along with Representative Kropp. And I will be in that work group, but they both met at the same time and I was in a different work group. So I don't have the best update on that. I know that OCDLA has done a lot of work around the systems efficiency piece. And so I applaud all of the work that they have done and all the coalition building they've done amongst the provider community. So I would say stay in touch with them primarily on that part, but also you have representation through both you have not both, but OCDLA, Public Defenders of Oregon, and Oregon Defenders Consortia Association all have representation in these groups. And so them, along with us, is a great place to provide feedback and information and get information from the people that you know that are representatives in those organizations in order to get that information spread out. The number 3 work group is data collection and forecasting, along with a subheading of workload model. This is led by Ken Sanchagrin from the Criminal Justice Commission and Senator Gorsuch. And they are talking about the data needs of the agency. They're talking about the forecasting for what the needs of the numbers of attorneys going forward. And of course, that brings in issues around a workload model to try to figure out what forecasting would actually look like so we can figure out how many attorneys are actually needed. So really important group as well that will also be meeting. And all of these groups they have indicated to us will be designed around whether legislation could come out of these groups during this next legislative session. No promises, but that's what the intended goal is. Number 4 is recruitment, retention, and workforce development, along with a subheading of also conflict rules. So that is the group that I was a part of. That's headed by Sean McCrae and Rob Harris. And I provided some information from the Office of Public Defense Services, Workforce Development Work Group 2, but this is a little broader than that as well. But it is really about trying to meet that need that we really have across all of Oregon in retention and recruitment of people into public defense. So keeping them and attracting new people, which I think are very married goals. So those are the main ones. There is a bonus work group, as I'm calling it, which is the delivery model, which of course is one of the things that is high on everybody's mind, but something that wasn't included in the basic 4 work groups. So it's a little bit up in the air whether that's going to materialize. They're talking about maybe it's starting to work in December or later, but hopefully it does, because I think that's an important discussion for everyone to be able to be having, especially since we have so many people at the table. So those, I went through the representative groups. We want to maybe use this as a forum to have these conversations and get feedback going forward in a more structured way. So kind of look for that. The next work group meeting for the 3-branch work group is on November 10th, and that's just for the full work group. So I just went through all the sub work groups. They're all going to have different meeting schedules. But the next work group meeting is November. They're taking December off, and then they're planning to continue the full work group and the sub work groups into the legislative session. My last note, although I'll stick around to answer any questions too, is remember to vote. We got about just under 2 weeks now, so get out there and vote. I think now is on to the question and answer period. So unless I missed something, I think that's time to open it up. I'll just remind everybody, or maybe it's your first time on here, you have to just either put your digital hand up or pop your video up in order to ask a question, because we don't have a chat feature. We're just doing it all orally because we're recording it.
And hi, everybody. This is Alina Haynes, Executive Assistant here at OPDS. We did have 2 questions in advance of the call, which I'm happy to share first. Let me just pull those up here. So the first question we received was from Andy Ewens, sorry if I'm mispronouncing your last name. The question is, how do we bill when we have more than one funding approval for a single case? Do we create one invoice for all expenses on the case and enter all expenses online for each funding approval, or should we create separate invoices that only cover each individual funding approval? The response on that, or the, I guess, recommendation is only one invoice for one funding approval, assuming CSS, or it will be rejected. It's a one-to-one thing. We've gotten this question a lot lately from new providers and attorneys, and it is stated and outlined in the payment policy. So that was the first question. I don't know if we have Andy on the line, but feel free to jump in if you have any further questions or anything further on that.
I'm here.
Hi. Hello.
Hi there. So each approval is going to have its own customized invoice that only covers what that funding approval. So that's what you're saying?
That is my understanding. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Got it. I'm new and I had lots of trouble on my first submission, so this helps.
Thank you for being with us, and yes, feel free to. I'm glad that adds some clarity there. But if you think of anything else, we're here for you. Moving along to the second inquiry that was submitted in advance, which actually is a three-part question. This was received from Bernie Brown. Question regarding unrepresented individuals. Number one, how do investigators identify and contact any of the unrepresented program attorneys to attempt to get assigned to those cases? The recommendation for that first question is OPDS, and Lori Bender mentioned earlier in this call, but OPDS is maintaining a list of attorneys that have been assigned those cases. And if you'd like additional information, you can contact the trial division about that. And Lori Bender, lori.bender@opds.state.or.us. And again, we'll have a copy of these questions and answers in writing posted with the recording on our website shortly after this meeting. So the second part was the $75 an hour rate is to incentivize investigators to take on these unrepresented clients, perhaps investigators that stopped taking court-appointed cases due to the low rate. Now those investigators are being paid more to return to the court-appointed work through the duration of those cases. How is this to be perceived by those investigators that remained with OPDS throughout the past few years, have more than a full caseload because of it, and may not be able to take on the unrepresented cases? Of course, a solution might be to raise the base rate for all investigators to $75 an hour. So the response on that one, OPDS absolutely acknowledges that all investigators and mitigators are deserving of an increased rate. And we do anticipate a robust discussion on compensation during the legislative session. The third part of this inquiry was in regards to mitigators. Mitigator specialists are paid at a higher rate than fact investigators, ? Will mitigators receive an equally higher rate, plus 875%, sorry about that, with the unrepresented program? And the response to that was mitigators will receive the same rate of $75 an hour for these cases. So I'm not sure if we have Bernie Brown on the line, and if that answers your questions, feel free to chime in if you have anything further, or we can open up the floor to anybody else that has questions today.
And I am not seeing any hands go up. It is about 12:41, and I know that not everybody stays through the whole thing, but I think at this point, unless someone else had something else, we can probably close the meeting. And I think you guys know how to contact us. If you don't, check out the website. Most of the email addresses for the people talking on this call are on there. Thanks for joining us.